Hello there, this is Mind Robber. So, wanted to chat with you all about modular, right? And my experience over the past 12 months building my first modular system ever. Now, to give you some background on me, I've been doing synthesizers since the late 80s. I've got an extensive knowledge of synthesis and how to use synthesizers. So moving to modular was actually very easy because I already understood the components. So keep that in mind. If you do not have a good understanding of synthesis, I'd recommend you do that education, learn about synthesis, so then you understand how this all fits together, because without that background, I think building a modular is a lot more challenging. So that being said, let's get into it. So first thing I want to talk about is Modular Grid. Now, Modular Grid is a great place to start, but be flexible to change. Now, I will post the Modular Grid link of this system down in the comments, so that way you can take a look at it, as you're watching this video. I'd say about 50% of this system is what I originally designed. What looks good on Modular Grid is not always applicable when you actually get your hands in there and you're twisting knobs and you're trying to do the workflow. It may not turn out as you imagined. Now, a good example is drums. I had a drum module that had lots of buttons on it, and you could press all the individual buttons to trigger, the beats, the kick and the snare, and I just found it too much. It was too much. So I moved to the Shackmat Nike's Gallop, which is one I could program beats into, and then I could just twist the knobs real quick to get variations, and I could also modulate it. So do Modular Grid, but be prepared to change and adjust as you apply it. And it's going to be a journey. You're never going to get it right the first time. So, number 2, budget for cables and get cables of different lengths. As you can see, I've got lots of cables on here. I'm not even sure it's even fully set up at this point. I can probably plug a few more things in. Got some extra stuff I want to modulate, but there's a ton of cables in there, right? That's probably about, $100, $200 worth of cables. Get cables of different lengths, but put the cables in your budget. You're already paying a lot of money for the system, but, don't be surprised by how much cables cost. They do cost a lot. But get many different lengths, get a bunch of cables. That's it on cables. It's because it's going to sound silly. Modulation is everything, right? And that sounds silly, right? Modulation is everything. Ah, look at that. Dogs in the middle of my video. I'll be right back. All right. That fiasco is over. So, again, modulation is everything. And that sounds silly, right? Modulation being everything, because of course it's modular. But that being said, when I first set this up, I got some modules, some drum modules in particular, that didn't have many modulation inputs. And so, the only way I could change the sound was by twisting the knobs, which isn't a bad thing. But that's not what modular is about, right? Modular is about modulating as much as possible. So whenever you buy a module, really pay attention to those inputs that it's got. Everything I've got on here has got many inputs. The Jomox, I've got 4 CV inputs. The Desmodius Versio from Noise Engineering, you can modulate every single thing on there. So many of these modules have modulation inputs. The Ensemble Oscillator, I think it's got a total of 8 CV inputs for modulation. So keep that in mind. Whenever you're buying a module, make sure that it's got lots of CV inputs so you can really get the most out of that module as far as modulation goes. This one's going to sound silly. Get a tuner. Right here. Get a tuner. You're going to need to tune your oscillators and make sure they're in tune. They get knocked all the time, gets moved around, they go out of tune, it's going to sound like crap if you don't get a tuner and tune it before you use it. Get a tuner. Plain and simple, right? Next one. Buy yourself a complex oscillator. I've got a Make Noise DPO right there. When I first did the setup, I had pretty basic oscillators, and it got a bit boring, quite candidly, after a while. And then I decided to go with the DPO, and really the complex oscillator really opens up a world of sound. So even if you just get one, I've only got one in this system, get one complex oscillator. And there's so many good ones out there, but and I know they're a bit more expensive, but jump in there, get yourself a complex oscillator. You will not regret it. Buy yourself a great analog multi-mode, I can't say that, multi-mode filter. Buy yourself a great analog multi-mode filter. I've got the Belgrade, and when I say multi-mode, you can switch from low pass to high pass to band pass, and this actually has a switch that allows me to switch between them instead of plugging in and out cables, which I like a lot. But get yourself a nice filter. Makes so much difference to the sound, and the Belgrade mixed with the DPO, just really, really lovely stuff. So get yourself something that does chords. So I got the Ensemble Oscillator, which I really like, and that does chords. I tried Plats or Plates by Mutable Instruments, however you want to pronounce it. That was pretty nice, but I decided to go with the Ensemble Oscillator because it really gave me some nice chords, especially when you're extending those out, like nice long pads, some really, really nice sounds out of that. But get yourself something that can do chords, because it really will enrich whatever you are working on or developing out of your modular synth. All right, chords. All right, other things. My dogs are fighting. Can you believe this? My dogs are fighting. I can't get a break. So anyway, you're just gonna have to listen. You're gonna have to listen to dogs fighting during the course of this. Get yourself some attenuators. Very important. Now, attenuators come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. I got these little add-on attenuators right there. I'm not sure if you can see that. These are sort of little things. I think these were from Synth. I'm not sure. And I can put those between cables. I've also got some attenuators, on maths. I could probably use some more, quite frankly. But attenuators, because you got your CV signals and they're going to be big like this, and sometimes you might want subtlety. The only way to do that is with attenuators. You can also do that with VCAs, but get yourself some attenuators. All right, other things you need to get yourself some multiples. I've got some multiples. I've got these Ninja Stars right here that I use, but I've also got a multiple right in here that I use. But you will need some multiples, especially for clock signals, things that you want to send to more than one place. You're going to need a master clock source. Now, I got the Shackmat Clockaporn. You're going to have to clock everything. So many things need a clock. My quad LFO needs a clock. My quad envelope needs a clock. My marbles needs a clock. My sequencer needs a clock. My Shackmat needs a clock. So many things, my delay needs a clock. So many things need a clock. And that's why you need the multiples, right? So you can send those clocks out. But you're going to need a clock. Find something that will be your master clock. Okay, mixer. Took me a long time to deal with mixers. Get yourself a mixer with at least 2 stereo auxiliary returns. I've gone through so many mixers, it's ridiculous, just trying to find the mixer I really liked. And then finally, the modular gods blessed me, and a company called Feedback Modular created this Mix BX, which I really, really like. It's a 6-channel modular mixer. It's got low and high EQ. It's got 2 auxiliary sends. It's got pan. It's got mutes. It's got gain. It's just really nice mixer. But this was when I settled on. I went for a ton of mixers. I even used an ES9 for a little while, going into a laptop using Ableton, and that was great. But I really didn't want to, have the laptop involved. I wanted to just keep the whole thing hardware. So mixer, at least 2 stereo auxiliary returns. Okay. Speaking of mixers, you're going to need sub-mixers. So I've only got 6 input channels on my main mixer, but on the DPO, I've got 6 oscillator outputs, right? So I got this nice, DTM 3-channel mixer that's based on the Moog one. It gives you a little overdrive as you get up on the higher range there. But so I can take 3 of these and I can put it into this mixer and then I'll send it down here. But you're going to need sub-mixers, okay? I use a sub-mixer for the drums because I have a clap and I have the Jomox going into a similar, but that's a 2 HP mixer. And we'll talk about 2 HP modules momentarily. So you're going to need sub-mixers. There's no way around it. Keep that in mind. Distortion enhances everything. I don't have enough distortion. If I make this system bigger, I will buy more wave folders and overdrive and distortion modules. I currently have a very nice gain on this Mix BX, which is really nice. It really enhances stuff. And I've also got a wave folder over here. I know the Ensemble Oscillator's got a little distortion in it. Also the Belgrade has got a little bit of distortion in it. Don't ignore the benefits of distortion and gain. Even small amounts can really bring life to the sound of your oscillators. I really recommend that you have some sort of distortion, some sort of wave folding in your system. It's well worth the while, and it will make everything sound so much better. Generative music is more fun than you know. I've got a marbles going into a quantizer, and I can use, I got this, you can't really see it down here, but you'll see it on the Modular Grid. I've got a router that allows me to flip between the 2. So using the random marbles in conjunction with pre-created ideas that I have really brings the whole thing to life, and it stops me from getting bored, quite frankly. I usually have maybe a preset bass line, and then I'll use the marbles to add some improvised stuff over the top, and it really is fantastic. So really make sure, I would recommend getting something so you can add some generative music, generative sequences, CV, gates, whatever, to your system, because it's quite inspiring, and it will create stuff that maybe you didn't think of, and it just adds life to everything. 2 HP size modules. Let's talk about those. You always end up, when you're on Modular Grid, you always end up with like that 2 HP space left, It's inevitable. And, what the heck? Fill it with a 2 HP. But what I have found with the 2 HP size modules, if you're going to put it somewhere in the middle of the case, it needs to be one of those things that you really never touch. You just kind of put it in there, you set it, and you forget it. I've got a analog filter actually that I use on drums that I'm able to control with the emblematic, but it's over there and I never touch it. I set it and I forget it because I can't get in there. It's just impossible. It's the same over here. I've got a compressor that I use for sidechain compression with bass. I set it and I forget it. The stuff that I do want to use is I've got an attenuator over here that sends signals to the sequencer, and I've also got a clock modulator on the side. I found that with the 2 HP units, you've got to put them on the side to make them accessible. Otherwise, you can't get to the knobs. Plain and simple, really. Get some sort of preset module, okay? I've got the emblematic. I forget what this is called, but I think it's the only one that they make. But basically a preset module, you know, preset. I mean, it is modular after all, right? It lets you program CV outputs that go out of these different, you know, outs here and send it. So you can save different states, I would say, of your modular system. I know a keyframer can do that. I think Mutable Instruments has a keyframe. I think Polyend does some kind of preset module. But it does make it a lot more fun because you've only got so many hands. So these preset modules, this one allows me to slide between the two presets. I think a keyframer does the same thing. You can twist the knob. Or I can press the buttons to move to a preset by holding it down. But it does make it a lot more fun, and I'd recommend getting some kind of preset device. Again, preset in quotes. Treat this like an instrument. No different than a guitar or a bass, or, you know, any kind of instrument that you play with your hands, because they really are hands-on. And I found the most fun that I get out of it is building it like an instrument that I have to learn how to play. And that's the key, right? Is once you've got all of this built, you've got to practice. You've got to put in practice time to learn how to play this wonderful instrument that you have created. And there's no way around it. So it's going to be a bit frustrating, you know, it's going to be challenging. Some of the first things you do are going to sound pretty bad. And I think I'm actually, you know, I'm still working it out because I only just finished this, right? It's been 12 months, so I'm still learning how to play it. So treat it like an instrument, design it as an instrument, you know, hands-on. Once you've got all of this set up, one of the nice things to keep it fresh is to buy similar size oscillators that you can just pull out and plug in. For example, you know, I've got the Ensemble and I've got the Synchrodyne. I think I've got an Erica Synth bassline, and I can just pull this out. It's a DIY bassline, and I can just plug it right in, and it fills just in the space. And there's so many options as far as oscillators go out there. You can always find tons of really, really good options that are exactly the same size. And in that way, you don't have to reconfigure the whole thing, you know. You got your basics. I got my drums, I got my mixer, you know, I got my preset, my delays and all of that stuff. If I want to change the sounds, I just pull the one module out, put the next one in, and then I'm good to go. Plain and simple. Consider using some non-modular hardware to finalize your mix. I use an outboard oral exciter and an outboard compressor that everything goes to, and then it goes into my recording system. Obviously, it'd be nice if I had a bigger setup and I could have all of that in here. You know, obviously that would add more of an expense. But I have found that using the outboard compressor and the outboard oral exciter does make a big difference. There are those dogs again. Didn't talk about drums. There he is. Didn't talk about drums. If you want drums, it's going to take up more HP. I would say around 80 HP. There's no way around that. If you don't need drums, then, you know, your system would be a lot smaller. But, you know, I've got two Shackmat drum sequencers. I got the two Joe Marks, and yeah, I know they're big, but they sound great, and they've got lots of modulation. They sound great. I've got patching Panda hats, and I've got a tip-top clap right in there. But that's only 4 drum sounds, and that takes up, you know, quite a bit of real estate, almost an entire row of real estate just for drums. So if you are going to do drums, just factor that in. It is going to take up quite an extra amount of space. I think this is my last one. And I'm sure there's tons of other things out there. You know, this is just my first video. Just want to share some thoughts. Filters with VCAs can save you some space. Plain and simple. Where they always say you never have too many VCAs, right? But, you know, it's limited space, and, you know, these systems are expensive. So, I mean, I showed you the steady state fate before, One of the nice things about this one is it does have a built-in VCA, which is really helpful. So you don't, you can plug your oscillator right into this, and you don't have to go into another VCA, so it really saves some space. There are a number of other filters out there that have built-in VCAs, so keep your eye out for those as well when you're building your system. But other than that, that has been my journey. As I said, there's not a single thing on here right now I am looking to replace. It has got everything that I need, at least for now. So good luck in your journey. And if you have any questions, stick them in the comments below. Thanks.